He should or would be happier living in Montana doing his occasional, he doesn't say occasional, but I'm going to say occasional charity work and, a life of service. When I'm not stoned, I like to sort of pretend that I'm not pretending. I really enjoy being a prince.
King Charles has more power over Harry and Meghan's royal brand machine than most people realize, and the legal history backs it up. Lady Colin Campbell, someone who has spent decades studying the legal and historical framework of the British monarchy, breaks it all down with serious authority. The options on the table are real, they're constitutional, and they're being deliberately ignored. Start with the most basic move, removing Harry and Meghan from the royal family's official website. Right now, they're still listed there under their Sussex titles, with links pointing straight to their commercial businesses. That listing implies royal approval. It implies the institution is perfectly fine with what they're doing. It's not a legal document, it's a communications tool. The king can change it tomorrow if he wants to, but the excuse for not doing it? That it would be a provocation, that Harry and Meghan might feel attacked, that the headlines wouldn't be worth it. Sound familiar? It's the same logic used every single time the palace has done absolutely nothing. And here's the real problem. Harry and Meghan have already shown they'll call any royal action persecution, no matter what. So if provocation is the reason to stay frozen, then provocation becomes a permanent force field against any response, ever. The website fix isn't dramatic. It doesn't strip titles, it doesn't touch the line of succession, it simply tells the truth. These are not working royals. Nothing they do carries royal endorsement. Any royal-adjacent glow in their business deals? Not approved, not co-signed, not royal. Now the bigger question, the titles themselves.
They have declared that they are half in, half out, and who doesn't like it will just have to suck it up. They have said it privately, they have said it publicly, they have used slightly different words, but that's the meaning of what they have said.
Campbell points to a precedent most people have completely forgotten. King George V, back in 1917, redrew the entire map of who could hold princely rank and the style of royal highness by order in council. No parliament, no lengthy legal process, just a royal decree. That single move wiped out the princely rank of multiple extended family members, including Prince Alistair of Connaught, son of one of Queen Victoria's most beloved sons. That precedent matters. It means King Charles could issue an order in council today, declaring that the Royal Highness style and the title of prince can be withdrawn from individuals who commercially exploit their royal status in ways that damage the monarchy. The legal tool exists. The historical blueprint exists. The documented behavior across their public ventures gives the justification. What's missing is the will to do it. And that's where it gets personal. Queen Elizabeth faced exactly this situation with Prince Andrew. She acted swiftly, decisively, publicly, stripping him of his Royal Highness style, regardless of her private feelings as his mother. She separated the woman from the crown and did what the institution required. Charles, according to Campbell, hasn't shown that same ability to separate the personal from the institutional. The son he loves and the institutional crisis that son represents feel like one and the same to him. And as long as they do, the palace stays frozen, the website stays up, and the titles stay intact. Campbell's deep dive into the historical Bill of Pains and penalties reveals something most people completely missed. The mechanism was used in 1820, when King George IV tried to block Queen Caroline from holding her status and title as queen.
Should be removed from the royal family website. They really should. Of course, they've not been so far because basically there are a host of reasons that the public doesn't want to accept.
The bill passed the House of Lords but never even made it to the Commons. It was never implemented. And the damage it caused? Enormous. It made George IV look vindictive toward a woman he had already treated badly, generated massive public sympathy for Caroline, and ended up hurting the monarchy far more than the behavior it was meant to punish. The lesson from 1820 maps directly onto today's situation. The more aggressive and formal the palace's response to Harry and Meghan's conduct, the the more it risks feeding exactly the victimhood narrative that is their most commercially valuable product. Harry has been anticipating institutional persecution since the Oprah interview. The framework is already built and ready to deploy. Any action the palace takes becomes evidence of the racism and cruelty, he says, drove them out. The bigger the action, the more material they have. This is the trap Charles is navigating. And that's why the smarter play is a series of quiet, specific, consistent moves, updating the website, issuing an order in the council, sending the occasional formal signal that the conduct crosses a line, rather than one dramatic gesture that hands them the documentary they're already mentally filming. The order in council is the right tool precisely because it is administrative, not punitive. It doesn't punish Harry as a person. It simply clarifies the constitutional boundaries of what the institution extends to people who are not working royals operating within the institutional framework. There is a legal distinction between stripping a title as punishment.
Harry could be stripped of his Royal Highness, and Harry could be stripped of his princely rank. And it could be done very simply. The king could simply declare that hereafter, and it could simply be something that he can just do. He's allowed to do it. He's the fount of all honors.
And withdrawing a designation because circumstances have changed. The 1917 precedent established clearly that the latter sits entirely within the sovereign's authority. The conduct of the Australian tour, the commercial exploitation, the Bondi Beach listing, the children's titles dropped into product descriptions, those are the changed circumstances that provide the legitimate basis for that clarification. The dukedom, the earldom, and the barony are harder cases, as Campbell acknowledges. These are peerage titles with their own distinct legal framework, more complex than what an order in council can address. But the Royal Highness designation and the princely style, those can be handled more simply, and they're the elements carrying the most commercial weight. Prince Archie of Sussex in a candle description hits differently than just Archie of Sussex. The princely designation is doing serious commercial work. Withdrawing it from individuals operating outside the institutional framework would directly cut into that exploitation. So will Charles act? The consistent pattern of his reign already answers that question. He understands what needs to be done. This isn't a failure of understanding. It's a failure of will. Queen Elizabeth had the specific ability to compartmentalize that Charles simply does not possess. She was publicly queen regardless of her private feelings. Charles is publicly king and privately father at the same time, and those two roles keep contaminating each other. The institution has been paying the price ever since. William's position is structurally different, and that difference is everything. When William becomes king, the parental dynamic is gone.
And he could also most likely make an order in council that any member of the royal family who has a peerage is not allowed to use it for commercial purposes without reference to the Lord Chamberlain or whomever.
What remains is a sibling relationship that Charlotte Griffith, using her specific access, has described plainly as hate. For William, the personal and institutional calculations don't pull in opposite directions. They point the exact same way. William has no parental inhibition holding him back. He's not waiting for his brother to come around. He has reached a settled, clear-eyed position about who Harry is and what Harry's conduct means. And that position is fully compatible with the institutional action Charles keeps deferring. No hesitation, no sentiment, just the institution. This is exactly why this summer's events carry such structural weight. If Charles acts now, removes the couple from the royal website, issues the order in council, sends the formal signal that half in, half out is not a permitted arrangement, he shapes what William inherits. If Charles continues doing nothing, William inherits years of institutional non-response, and cleaning that up will be far more disruptive for having been left so long. The give them enough rope strategy has worked in one specific sense. Public opinion has shifted dramatically, from the enthusiastic reception of the 2018 Australian tour to a Roy Morgan poll showing 81% disapproval in 2026. The rope has done real damage, but here's the problem. The damage landed on their reputation, not on their access. The royal website still lists them. The titles are still in the candle descriptions. Their commercial access to the royal brand stayed wide open while their public image collapsed around them. Campbell's recommendation is precise. Pair the patient's strategy with occasional formal institutional signals.
Because as soon as the Epstein thing became the issue that it became, she immediately prevented him from using Royal Highness.
Remove them from the website. Issue the order in council. Make it formally clear through official channels that the commercial exploitation of royal designations is not consented to, not approved, and carries real consequences. At minimum, a statement that no future conduct by Harry or Meghan should be read as institutional endorsement. At maximum, an order in council withdrawing the princely designations entirely. Short of full peerage revocation, that is the strongest available move. The gauntlet has been thrown. The tools exist. The historical precedent is clear. The constitutional mechanism is available. The documented conduct provides the justification. What's missing is the political will. In a king who is seriously unwell, whose love for his son keeps contaminating the institutional calculation, and who watches as the candle descriptions go live, the blueprint gets announced, and the website listing persists unchanged. The summer will arrive. Invictus preparations will bring Harry to Britain. The review will produce some outcome, and the institution will have shown, through action or deliberate inaction, exactly what it has decided about the gauntlet that has been lying at its feet since the Australian tour announced itself as the blueprint for a permanent half-in, half-out future. The tools are there. The will remains the question, and the Wakeford Vindication dimension of Campbell's commentary deserves more than a passing mention. What Wakeford's reporting validates isn't just the financial picture, the depleted resources, the declining fees, the tightening runway. It validates the entire interpretive framework that outside voices have been applying to the situation for years. The diverged goals, the commercial operation requiring Harry's institutional proximity.
He is more wishy-washy, and I think he is backboned enough. But the strategy, whether it's cruel or not, of giving them enough rope to hang themselves with has been working very well.
Regardless of his personal preferences, the observation that the relationship is held together not by shared vision, but by a calculated pullback mechanism. These frameworks were already in the public record, long before Wakeford published a single word. These frameworks weren't pulled from thin air. They were built from observable evidence, from specific patterns in public appearances, from body language at the retreat and the rugby match, from footage that went viral for all the wrong reasons, and from sources who described witnessing it all as deeply troubling. The alternative commentary space put all of this together from what was publicly visible and got dismissed as speculation and bias for doing it. Then Wakeford, and with the internal access that outside commentators never had, arrived at the exact same conclusions using insider sources. Two completely different routes, same destination, same picture. This convergence is the pattern that defines how the honest record always emerges. It starts outside the approved media ecosystem, built from observable evidence by people with no access arrangements. Then it gets confirmed from the inside when those access arrangements change and the truth becomes commercially available. The confirmation produces the vindication, and suddenly audiences who only trust approved sources can finally see what others saw years earlier. The vindication is real, but it's delayed. And that delay has a very real cost, because while the honest record was being slowly assembled, confirmed, and eventually vindicated, the commercial exploitation didn't pause for a single day. The operation kept running, the brand kept expanding, the institutional adjacency kept being leveraged, and nobody in the palace did a thing to stop it. Think about what that actually means in practical terms. Every month, the website stays live with their Sussex listing.
With that needs to go the occasional, shall we say, demonstration from him that this is unacceptable, and just freezing them out isn't enough.
Every product description carrying a princely title, every commercial venture benefiting from implied royal association, that's real value being extracted from an institution that has not consented to provide it. It's not abstract. It's not symbolic. It translates directly into brand equity, into commercial partnerships, into the kind of global recognition that Meghan's lifestyle ventures require to function at the level she's targeting. The candle descriptions are still in the product copy. The website still lists the couple. The blueprint is still being deployed, openly, confidently, without any institutional consequence whatsoever. And the king has the tools to address every single one of these issues through mechanisms that require no parliamentary process and don't hand the couple the dramatic persecution narrative they've been waiting to deploy the moment anyone moves against them. He is still rolling with the punches. The summer is scheduled. The blueprint is announced. The gauntlet is on the floor, and it has been on the floor long enough to gather dust. The institution is still deciding, still weighing, still hoping that patience alone will be enough. But patience without consequence isn't a strategy, it's a permission slip. Every day of inaction sends a signal, not just to Harry and Meghan, but to every future royal who might consider testing the boundaries of what the institution will tolerate. The signal being sent right now is that the boundaries are negotiable, that the designations can be commercially exploited without consequence, and that the institution will absorb the damage indefinitely rather than act. William is watching all of this, and William is waiting. The tools will...
Because the relationship is different. Parents always want to hope that their children will come right. Siblings understand that who they thought loved them, once they cast you in the role of enemy, it's because they are your enemy.
Absolutely still be there when it becomes his decision to make. But the situation he inherits will be harder to clean up for every year it's been left unaddressed. The calcification that happens through years of institutional non-response doesn't just affect public perception. It affects legal positioning, commercial relationships, and the practical difficulty of unwinding arrangements that have been quietly permitted to operate for an extended period. Now, Campbell raises one more dimension that cuts deeper than most people realize: institutional competence. And this one is uncomfortable, because it suggests the problem isn't just political will. It may also be institutional ignorance at the advisory level. If the advisors currently in Charles's ear don't know that an order in council can withdraw the princely designation, or don't understand the 1917 precedent that places this clearly and unambiguously within the sovereign's authority, then the tools go unused not because of a deliberate choice, but because nobody in the room knows they exist. That is a different kind of failure, and in some ways, a more alarming one. Think about how that happens. The palace has modernized. It has brought in advisors from outside the traditional royal system, communications professionals, strategic consultants, people with backgrounds in corporate reputation management and media relations. These are skilled people in their fields. But the royal system is not a corporation. It is not a media company. It operates through constitutional mechanisms that have centuries of specific precedent behind them. And those mechanisms are not common knowledge, even among highly educated and highly capable professionals.
Sometimes, because they don't know what the tools are to create whatever it is they want to create, they are hamstrung. But fortunately, not everybody is hamstrung.
The solution those advisors reach for becomes the bill of pains and penalties, the dramatic, heavy-handed, politically catastrophic mechanism that George IV tried and failed to deploy against Queen Caroline in 1820. They reach for it because that's what they know from general constitutional history. It's the famous example. It's the one that shows up in textbooks. What they don't know are the more targeted, more proportionate, more administratively clean tools that royal prerogative actually provides. An order in council is not dramatic. It doesn't generate the kind of headlines that feed the victimhood narrative. It doesn't look like persecution. It looks like administration, because it is administration. It is the sovereign clarifying, through a well-established constitutional mechanism, the boundaries of what the institution extends to individuals operating outside the institutional framework. It has been done before. It was done in 1917 without parliamentary process, without a bill, without the catastrophic political optics that a punitive measure would generate. And it can be done again, but only if the people advising the king know it exists, only if the institutional knowledge is present in the room where the decisions are being made. And Campbell's frustration, barely contained beneath the characteristic precision of her commentary, is that this knowledge is not reliably present, that the people brought in to modernize the institution have, in some critical respects, arrived without truly understanding what the institution is and how it actually works. This is exactly why institutional knowledge matters so urgently right now. The people who truly understand how the royal system operates, who know the letters patent, the orders in council, the specific and crucial distinction between peerage titles and princely styles, the documented precedents of 1917, and what they established about sovereign authority. Those are the people who can identify the clean, proportionate, legally sound response to what is currently happening. They are the people who can walk into that advisory meeting and say, here's the tool, here's the precedent, here is why it works, and here is exactly why it doesn't hand Harry and Meghan the documentary material they're waiting for. The people who don't know the system reach for the sledgehammer when a scalpel was always available. And the difference between those two instruments in this specific context is the difference between a constitutional clarification that quietly withdraws a commercial asset and a punitive spectacle that validates every claim the couple has ever made about institutional persecution. The stakes of that difference cannot be overstated. Harry has spent years constructing a narrative framework in which the institution is the villain, in which every action taken against him becomes evidence of the racism and cruelty he says drove his family out. That framework is commercially valuable. It is the foundation of the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, the memoir, and everything that followed. It is also strategically ready to be activated the moment the institution makes a move dramatic enough to feed it. A bill of pains and penalties feeds it. A dramatic public title stripping feeds it. A high-profile legal confrontation feeds it. An order in council, administrative, precedented, constitutionally clean, does not feed it in the same way. It is precisely the kind of measure that is hard to dramatize, hard to present as persecution, and hard to build a documentary around, which is exactly why it is the right tool for this specific moment. And here is what makes this even more urgent. The window is not staying open forever. Every month that passes without a formal institutional response is another month the commercial operation embeds itself deeper. It builds more partnerships. It secures more deals. It generates more brand recognition on the back of royal adjacency that the palace has never formally withdrawn. The longer the silence continues, the more normalized the arrangement becomes, not just in the public eye, but in the commercial and legal landscape that would eventually have to be unwound. Think about what it takes to reverse a commercial arrangement that has been tacitly permitted to operate for years. It is not clean. It is not simple. Lawyers get involved. Precedents get cited, not the 1917 kind, but the more recent kind, the kind that says this arrangement was allowed to function without objection for this long, and therefore carries a degree of institutional acceptance. That is the legal and commercial quicksand that grows deeper with every year of inaction. The tools are there. The precedent is crystal clear. The situation is thoroughly documented across the Australian tour. The blueprint announcement, the candle descriptions, the website listing, and everything that preceded it. The justification exists, the mechanism exists, the historical authority exists. What keeps getting harder to locate is the urgency, the recognition that delay itself is a decision with compounding consequences. Now consider what this looks like from the outside, from the perspective of every royal watcher, every constitutional expert, every commentator who has spent years tracking this situation. The palace has watched the Australian tour unfold as a commercial blueprint. It has watched the children's titles get dropped into product descriptions. It has watched the Sussex.com domain get linked directly from the royal family's own website. It has watched the Sandringham Agreement get walked past like it never existed. And at every single stage, the institutional response has been the same. Nothing. Silence. Absorption. That pattern sends a message. Not just to Harry and Meghan. They already know what they can get away with, because they have been shown repeatedly and without ambiguity. The message lands on every future royal, every future spouse, every future family member who might one day find themselves weighing the cost of testing institutional boundaries. What they are seeing right now is that those boundaries are not enforced, that the designations can be commercially exploited, that the website listing persists regardless of conduct, that patience and silence are the palace's default settings, and that default has no visible floor. William is watching all of this, and William understands exactly what it means. Because William is not navigating this with parental feeling clouding the institutional calculation. For William, the picture is clear and completely unambiguous. His brother left. His brother took shots at the institution, publicly, repeatedly, commercially. His brother's operation continues to extract value from a royal brand that his brother chose to walk away from. And the institution his father leads has absorbed every single bit of it without a formal response. When William becomes king, that changes. There will be no parental hesitation, no private hope that the relationship can somehow be quietly restored if the institution just stays patient long enough. William has reached a settled position, and that position is fully compatible with every tool that Campbell has described. The order in council, the website update, the formal withdrawal of the princely designation from individuals operating commercially outside the institutional framework. All of it becomes available the moment William has the authority to act. And unlike his father, William will not need to be talked into using it. But here is the uncomfortable truth that Campbell's analysis forces into the open. If Charles acts now, if he removes the website listing, issues the order in council, sends the formal institutional signal that half in, half out is not a permitted arrangement, he does William an enormous favor. He handles the situation while it can still be handled cleanly. He reduces the burden that lands on William's early reign. He demonstrates that the institution is capable of self-defense without resorting to the dramatic, punitive measures that would hand the couple their persecution narrative on a silver plate. If Charles continues to do nothing, William inherits the full accumulated weight of years of non-response, and cleaning that up, unwinding commercial arrangements that have been operating without formal objection, withdrawing designations that have been in active use across product lines and press materials for years, that process will be far messier, far more visible, and far more likely to generate exactly the kind of dramatic confrontation that feeds the victimhood framework Harry has spent years constructing. The calcification is real. It is happening right now, in real time, with every product description that goes live, and every month the website listing stays unchanged. And the institution is choosing, through deliberate inaction, to let it happen. That is the question Campbell's commentary leaves hanging, not as a failure of analysis, but as an honest acknowledgement of its limits. The analysis can identify the tools, it can clarify the precedents, it can document the conduct in granular detail. It can explain precisely why the order in council is the right instrument, why the bill of pains and penalties is the wrong one, and why the difference between those two approaches is the difference between a clean constitutional clarification and a politically catastrophic spectacle. What the analysis cannot do is supply the will. It cannot reach into the palace and place the right people in the room at the right moment. It cannot separate the king's love for his son from the institutional calculation that love keeps contaminating. It cannot accelerate the process by which honest reporting, assembled first outside the approved media ecosystem and confirmed later by insiders like Wakeford, finally translates into formal institutional action. The summer is coming. Harry's Invictus preparations will bring him back to British soil. The review will produce some outcome. The blueprint will keep being executed, and somewhere in the palace, a decision is either being made or being avoided. And the difference between those two outcomes will define what William inherits, what the institution looks like in a decade, and whether any of this analysis ever amounts to more than the most well-documented permission slip in modern royal history. The gauntlet is still on the floor, the dust is still settling on it, and the clock is still running. If this breakdown had you seeing the bigger picture, smash that like button, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to know what you think is going to happen this summer. See you in the next one.